Hello and welcome back to Rage Gaming and our newest look at some of the lesser known aspects of Monster Hunter Wilds. As always then, we've got a mix of weird, useful, or just interesting details you might not have known about, but today we have a few from the comments of this series that we'll be going through, so a big thank you to everyone that's made suggestions to help. With that said though, let's get into it. We begin with a few things that are relevant to the current event quest, the long-awaited sealed dragon cloth. We finally got this version in Wilds, and now it has an event quest with a Fulgur and Janath to get it. But there's some interesting things around this scarf, and of course, the event quest involved that I want to discuss. Firstly, in one of these recent videos, I want to highlight the fact that if you're on the equipment info page of an item, so whether we're looking at it in a craft or changing equipment, you can go through the different stats. And on the second page here where we're looking at decoration slots, but obviously there aren't any here, at the bottom you get this extra information. And it's particularly interesting in Wilds because here's the description. A cloth used to wrap the remains of an elder dragon. It has been sealed to prevent another calamity. This is particularly interesting as Josh brought it up to me. There aren't really elder dragons in Wilds. It does feel like this is referencing, of course, fatalis and the whole calamity of fatalis. And of course, we do have Zoshir with a lot of references and details tied to fatalis. Now, it's just a fun cosmetic item, but there's no doubt that that is referencing an elder dragon of some kind. I'm not exactly convinced that this means an elder dragon is coming. It's like the foreshadowing of that. But of course, if we reference the diva and the many popular theories around all fatalis or white fatalis and her possible connections to that, the idea that the diva is going to summon white fatalis or be part of how that happens, to my knowledge, this is our first direct reference of an elder dragon in Wilds in this way. So it's just definitely an interesting description. Next, let's talk about the event quest itself that you're going to get the scarf from, which is Running Wild. There's an interesting detail around this hunt, comparable to the Guardian Rathalos event in which all the other monsters were super weak. Now, in that Rathalos hunt, all the other targets were tempered, which was really nice. And since they were particularly weak, it was great for farming them. In this one, as you can see, unfortunately, there's actually only 2 tempered targets on the map, Kumatrice and Lalabarina, but then we have a Guardian Tashagama, which is still useful, 2 Guardian targets. Anyway, you'll go into this event quest, and if you ignore the Anjanath and target the other 3 monsters, you're going to find that they're extremely weak. In my opinion, it feels like they're weaker than the other event quest with the Guardian Rathalos we mentioned, to the point where I had just done my first few attacks and I was wondering, how long this is going to take, and it's dead. So obviously this is fantastic for farming some easy monster materials, and another way to do that now the Guardian Rathalos event quest isn't available. Further, there are at least 2 tempered targets here, so you can break all of their different tempered wounds and get those bloodstones for specific melding. Just worth thinking about and trying a little bit. On that note, I want to continue a topic where I mentioned some tips for Arch-Tempered Raidao and how Arch-Tempered Raidao had some specific wound locations like a tempered monster that would result in a free wound and a knockdown. When I said that, I highlighted the fact that bipedal monsters with a normal wound or these kind of tempered wounds, if you break those wounds when it's on the leg there, it often leads to a knockdown. In fact, a guaranteed knockdown, which is a great way to interrupt what the monster's doing and open up a free DPS window. But I got a few comments on that video with some extra information that I really want to share with you because it's going to be useful for future challenging content in this game. The first comment that I want to highlight comes from someone that I'm going to struggle to pronounce your name, I'm sorry. So my best effort is Tatsumi Uchiha, and they said that actually all tempered wounds lead to a guaranteed knockdown, which blows my mind because I played this game a tiny bit and I didn't realize that. They highlighted the fact that yes, for a bipedal monster, a normal wound on a leg like that is going to lead to a guaranteed knockdown on the leg. That's great. But tempered wounds are just guaranteed knockdowns. But there was a few other comments that kind of collaborated this, referencing the fact that tempered wounds will auto trip regardless of positioning. But it was Blackful Communism that mentioned the fact that if they're on the legs, so you got a guaranteed tempered wound that you're going to hit the scar and eventually open the wound, you can still open regular wounds in that same location. And if you were to layer a regular wound over a tempered wound in that context, the tempered wound will be prioritized over the normal wound. So you could break one, then the other for multiple knockdowns, which is really good to know when you think about the Arch-Tempered challenges that are going to keep coming. We're thinking that it's going to be Duna in the summer update, title update 2. That is not a bipedal monster, but it's good to know that the tempered wounds can be those guaranteed knockdowns. I don't know whether this is just obvious and I've just missed it, but I found that particularly important to know and figured I should share it. Lastly, for the relevant topic of this Wyverian event hunt, is the fact that while you're in Wyveria, of course there are all kinds of guardian creatures in those cocoons. One of which you can find is sleeping guardian seikrets, so the small seikrets. And I hadn't realized that you can run up and hit them. This causes them to exit their cocoon and activate. And this is useful because the little guardian seikrets will go after the nearby main monster that you're fighting, working actually as a bit of free DPS, but also more importantly, a useful distraction. You'll find that the monster will also accidentally awaken them with its own attacks, roars, AoEs and that kind of thing. It'll bring them all out. So baiting monsters over to these cocoon locations can actually be really useful. Also, it is true that the larger cocoons can have monsters in them and you can wait those up, but you can't do it with your own hits. It's my understanding that to do that, you need to draw an actual monster over there and have that slam into them, and that will then activate them and spawn another monster in that way. There's all kinds of cool animations to do with these cocoon awakenings, something I might look into in a future episode. But yeah, the sleeping guardian seikrets in the cocoons, you can hit them, open them up, and use them to your advantage. Next up, I want to listen to, well, some interesting sounds. Some cool comments referencing the fact that there are unique sounds were in the last few comments that I want to highlight. The ray weapons apparently have unique sounds when you sheath and unsheath them. So let's have a listen to that right now. Honestly, I was expecting more crystalline sounds than that, but I mean, when you look at the weapon, it does seem very metallic in that way. Something that I find interesting about the weapon though, if I zoom in on it for you, you can see that there's like a hint of thunder or lightning in the blade, flickering away. And when you're charging the sword, it sounds and looks a little bit unique with some thundery lightning effects to it. And now when we're charged up, you can see that the blade has become completely blue, matching the theme of the monster perfectly. God, that looks so much better. Interestingly, when you charge up the sword, it kind of overtakes the powered up version of the sword, so it turns red, and then obviously we have this molten overcharge. As I put that back in and we turn the sword back to blue. Such cool detail about this one awesome weapon that never sees any use. On that note of weapons you never ever see, the fact that the arkveld weapons transform when you pull them out is really cool. So as you can see, when I pull out these dual blades of arkveld, these are the guardian versions as well, there's nothing too special about them. But as I go into demon mode, they actually transform and they get these chains attached to them, which looks cool when I'm standing here and they turn into kind of sickle scythe things. But as I move around, they flop around a bit too aggressively, maybe a bit too comically. But man, there are some really cool secret little details to some of these weapons that we never see because no layered weapons. So next, apparently there is a difference between the whistling type that you use for your seikret or say summoning windrakes. And I thought that you would hear this unique whistle when summoning windrake for the very rarely used farcaster in wilds, just because again we have a seikret and fast travel options much better than before, but apparently that's not the case. Anyway, the best place I've seen to test this is here with the arena, because there are windrakes that let you go down. So here's the seikret whistle. So you do the one, or maybe you do two if you have to do it multiple times and the seikret's just not coming over. There you go, there's the double. Pretty high pitched, just so the seikret knows that you're calling it. So yeah, you don't make a sound when you're using the farcaster for some reason, but if you come to the arena, there are these wingdrake perches around the game, very rarely used. This brings us to the valley floor, and actually it's a familiar sound if you played a lot of World. So let's listen. Yep, I've heard that whistle so many times, and again, if you played any World, you'll have heard that so many times. It's funny, sounds you hear thousands and thousands of times and never think about, and then suddenly you stop hearing it, and personally, I didn't even notice. But it definitely is a distinctively different whistle between the two. Pretty cool. Alright, next up we have a cool comment from Lex Aegis, who talked about the fact that if you want to show off different knives, instead of waiting to look at it in the 10 sort of sharpening animation, as we've looked at before, there are quite a few gestures that actually pull out the knife for you to look at. One of the best options for that is this gesture, Uchiko, which has you kind of pull out the knife and start sharpening it and working with it in what feels like a very symbolic and careful, almost tradition style sharpening of a knife. So you can see that I have a proper knife here, just not too exciting due to the waist that I'm wearing right now. But let's, by comparison, have a look at a much more interesting waist. One of the first we talked about for the idea of waist changing your knives and getting to see that. It's the idea that I'm sharpening my lightsaber, carefully considering the details and the slight adjustments that this lightsaber definitely needs. But apparently there are other useful gestures for this purpose, like say the battle cry. We pull it out and hold it out in front of us. Pretty cool. And there's also to victory by comparison. Again, same thing, cheering and pulling it out. God, I'm scared he's going to cut himself with that. But yeah, pretty handy if you want to check all the different waist knives and find a particularly cool one for the purpose of your layered set. That is a useful tip to know. On that note, also we talked about the fact that the seikret tied braces in alpha specifically, they don't have a slinger on your left arm. You can see it's just these blue wraps. So if you pull out the slinger in the middle of a hunt, it will activate what's truly there. But if you're in town, you could do that by using, say, the capture net. So I pull it on my arm, and as you can see, I have this glowing purple flame. But the new thing here comes from the commenter, the One Kidney Wonder. If you equip throwing daggers instead, it'll show up as a purple glowing knife. So let's give that a go. Yeah, it seems like that's actually true. You just have this knife. In this case, it looks a little bit weird because it's just kind of hovering there. But it is cool that, I don't know if it's intentional or an accident, but the knife is essentially glowing purple within that flame. That is a really cool look. And a sort of little thing you could do if you want to take some cool screenshots or look a little bit cooler in the hub or something. Now, one last thing I want to talk about in regards to equipment and for today is actually the Zuwu weapons and their unique names. I've never really stopped to look at them because, again, as cool as they are, artian meta and all that, right? So we have the greatsword here. It actually has a different name in lower versions. These weapons are uniquely named and referenced not to just a random bit of gibberish, but famous assassins in history. You think about Zuwu and how it's the guardian hunter, the guardian assassin. Well then, it actually fits that bill pretty well. It turns out that each of the rarity 8 weapons have a unique name reference to that famous assassin. So apparently this one, the greatsword, is a reference to Gavrilo Princip, who assassinated the Archduke Franz Ferdinand. We had Buckwilf's Punisher, which as a bow, by the way, looks incredible. But this one was apparently based on John Wilkes Booth. So Buckwilf's Punisher is a reference to the assassination of President Abraham Lincoln. This is insane. What I'm referencing right now is a list from Reddit by the user MegaTyrant0, who highlighted all of their finds in regards to this. So for the hunting horn here, we have Kaijin's Lament, which is a reference to Jing Qi, an attempted assassin of a Chinese emperor, Qing Shi Huang. For the switch axe, we have Brutus's Abolishment, in regards to Marcus Junius Brutus, assassin of Julius Caesar. Well, one of many, I suppose, right? For the sword and shield, we have Cordelet's Revocation, in regards to Charlotte Corday, an assassin of a French Revolution leader, Jean-Paul Marat. And lastly, in reference to this concept, this incredible axe hammer, one of the coolest hammers available in the game, we have Zassio's Execution. For Lorenz Zassio, assassin of the Duke of Florence, Alessandro de Medici. I feel like I'm butchering these names, I'm sorry. But this is absolutely insane that they went to this level of detail just for some random references. But man, does it fit Zuwu so well, doubling up on them being some of the coolest weapons in the game. But yeah, there you have it, our newest set of things you might not have known about in Wilds. If you guys do have anything you'd like to add to today's topics, or maybe just a fresh suggestion to look into for another video, let me know in the comments. If we cover it, I'll be sure to credit you and your suggestion as usual. Otherwise, for now, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.